people seem to think of escapism as a dirty word, even though in moderation, it can actually be a healthy way for us to de-stress or to explore our creativity or to temporarily give us some relief from our real world problems. When used positively, it can be a helpful coping mechanism. It's all about keeping it under control and making sure that we are using it to our benefit and not unintentionally adding to our troubles by using this practice in a detrimental way. Now on this channel, however, we have talked a great deal about the dangers of escapism turning into avoidance or escapism activities taking over our life. So today, by request, I want to talk about how we can make sure that we are engaging in escapism in a healthy way so that we can enjoy these activities without worry or guilt. But first, if you're new here, my name's Nena. I help people to transform their lives through understanding their own psychology. So if that is a type of support that you may find beneficial, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. But let's go ahead and jump right in. And I want to start by talking about what we really mean by the word escapism. So just so we're on the same page, the American Psychological Association defines escapism as the tendency to escape from the real world to the safety and comfort of a fantasy world. So in other words, it's simply a way for us to temporarily distract ourselves from unpleasant realities by focusing our attention on other activities. And as I mentioned earlier, it can be perfectly healthy in moderation when we use it as a coping strategy. And as we all know, life as it is now can be innately stressful. So having coping strategies can be helpful, if not essential, to making it through the day. As we've talked about in many videos, however, it can be problematic if escapism starts to turn into avoidance. So let's quickly talk about what that means. Now, avoidance is a much less healthy behavior in which we can try to evade unwanted thoughts, feelings, situations, or people altogether, not as a temporary escape, but as an attempt to avoid them indefinitely. So what is really the difference? Well, some examples of escapism could be going for a long drive and listening to some loud music after having a difficult conversation, or coming home and playing video games for an hour after work because you had a hard day. So we can think of healthy escapism almost like a little time out where we are giving ourselves a breather from our problems. We are simply setting them on a shelf for a while because no one can relentlessly deal with problems 24 hours a day. We do need to let ourselves de-stress. So the hope is that we are going to be able to be more equipped to address them once we have been able to give ourselves some time away and to actually relax. Some examples of avoidance, on the other hand, might be binging on Netflix shows all afternoon because you want to avoid going to the dentist that day because you are afraid of needles. Or maybe excessively engaging in online shopping even though your finances can't support it because you want to try to perpetually avoid thinking about your work situation because you simply don't know what to do. And honestly, sometimes the line between escapism and avoidance can get blurred. So for example, we may try to engage in these activities to have that temporary relief from stress and anxiety, but then end up spending so much time on them that they start to interfere with our work and our relationships. So let's go ahead and talk about how we can make sure that we are engaging in escapism in a healthy way. The first thing that we can do is to choose escapist activities that do not interfere with our life in a negative way. In other words, we only want to engage in activities that we actually enjoy, that are positive or at least neutral. They don't necessarily need to be productive, but we do want to try to avoid activities that are addictive, like online gambling, or that isolate us for a long period of time, or that keep us in any way from effectively dealing with our problems. Instead, we want to try to choose escapism activities that are healthy and balanced, like spending time in nature, listening to music, watching movies, reading books, or engaging in creative pursuits. Being mindful of what we are trying to escape to can be just as important as having awareness of what we are trying to escape from. Now, the second thing we can do is to set limits on time spent escaping. It is extremely important that we keep track of and set limits on the time that we do spend engaging in escapism. And this is because overdoing it can lead to sleep problems and isolation and even mental health issues with time. So before you start an activity, make sure you decide ahead of time how long you're going to spend doing it, especially if it's something that could end up making you feel bad about how you spent your time. So for example, if you spend hours and hours working in the garden or going on a hike, you probably aren't aren't going to be too upset at yourself, but maybe if you end up spending the entire day aimlessly scrolling on social media or binging on a Netflix show you aren't even that excited about, you may feel a little bit differently. We want to be careful, however, that we're not always judging the activities that we choose, because sometimes we really do feel like we need to just sit down and watch TV. We need to chill out. This is what we can handle at the time. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as we have a time limit set and that it doesn't end up making us feel worse than we did before. And this really leads to the next point, which is to be mindful of your mental and emotional state when you are engaging in escapist activities. So if you find that your escapism is causing you to feel guilty, anxious, or ashamed, it's important that you take a step back and you reassess. It's also important that you pay attention to how you're feeling after you engage in these activities. If you feel relaxed or rejuvenated, it's likely that you are engaging in healthy escapism. But if you notice that you feel empty or drained, you may want to reconsider your choices and potentially find a healthier coping mechanism. Another thing that's essential is to make time for real-world relationships and activities. It is so important that we do this even when our lives feel incredibly busy, because spending time with loved ones and doing things that we actually enjoy helps us to reduce stress, it improves our overall well-being, and it helps us to live a life that is actually balanced. So try to schedule non-escapism activities into your week that are fun and that allow you to connect with other people, like meeting up for coffee with friends or watching a sporting event or even volunteering in your community. This helps to ensure that we are still fully engaged in the real world, and it also positively affects our mental health, which may mean that we have less need for escapism to begin with. Just remember that escapism can be a healthy part of our life, but it is important that we still balance it with the other important aspects of our life. It's also important to have awareness of why we feel the need to escape in the first place, and to be honest with ourselves if there are issues that we need to address. And if you find that you seem to be spending more and more time escaping, or if your escapism is starting to interfere with your work or your relationships or your well-being, or if you feel that escapism may be a way for you to try to avoid dealing with serious problems, you may want to seek out the support of a mental health professional. They can help you to better understand the situation and maybe find some healthier ways to cope. I also have several videos on this channel about how to overcome unhealthy escapism, so I will go ahead and link those down in the description box below so you have those resources as well. As always, I truly hope that you found today's video to be helpful and insightful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you aren't one already. I would absolutely love it if you stayed connected. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I hope the rest of your day is extraordinary.